My favorite season.
Hello there, wolf pack. The season of scares is upon us once more, which means we have some nasty tricks and sweet treats in store for you. If you're brave enough to enter our insane asylum, I, your beloved wacky feline catastrophe, am crossing over to the dark side. No, this isn't just a scheme to finally make Darth Talon my girlfriend. Soon, my pretty, soon.
The light on the dark side of me.
We're celebrating the start of our brand new set of reviews on a whole new classic horror anthology saga. Tales from the
Darkside.
Created by legendary horror director George A. Romero, Tales from the Darkside was a horror show about spooky, supernatural nightmares and fantastical horrors haunting naive humans, in a similar vein to The Twilight Zone, Goosebumps, Tales from the Crypt, and even The Haunting Hour. However, this show was more focused on the scary content rather than the sci-fi or cautionary elements most terror tales were well known for. The dark side was mainly the classic fear of things that go bump in the night and dread of the unknown, rather than the more thought-provoking flavor of the Twilight Zone or Outer Limits. Of course, there were some exceptions, as the series, like many of our grim shows, did add a variety of differing ideas and genres as well, to prevent the show from getting too dull or predictable. Some great, and some not so well thought out. Believe it or not, this show was originally supposed to be a spin-off series spawned from the underrated horror movie Creepshow, after its moderate success with horror fans. Tragically, that never happened, since our old enemy copyright interfered. So, this being Creepshow the show was totally scrapped, forcing Romero to rebrand this idea into the Dark Side title. This was honestly for the best, since Romero's series being a totally original show loosely inspired by Creepshow made it far easier to get into, compared to a spin-off from a movie franchise, especially for those who never saw said movie prior. Besides, Tales from the Darkside shared the cinematography and dark humor from Creepshow, but nothing else. The series adapted short stories and original horror tales from a wide range of writers, some of whom eventually exploded into household names. Some of the creators who got their start on this show include Robert Bloch, Michael McDowell, Harlan Ellison, Clive Barker, and even frickin' Dark Tower architect Stephen King. Alright. Yeah, this show, while fairly obscure, was insanely good, and deserves way more recognition by today. The showrunners were inspired by old-school horror comics, such as Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror. But ironically, this show's success was so grand that it practically paved the way for the actual Tales from the Crypt, and many of the horror writing styles we're familiar with. Most of the episodes were very clearly comeuppance stories, cruel, ironic misadventures, monster tales, and almost always had a twist ending for a finale. I would sincerely describe this show as the prototype for the Crypt Keeper's fables, and even an R-rated Haunting Hour. I absolutely adore this series, and consider it just as epic as my favorite horror show, The Ol' Haunting Hour. In fact, I actually got the entire collection of every episode of the saga ever, since I love it that much. It's just awesome. The Darkside Chronicles were all-out supernatural terror, full of magic, wonder, imagination, fun writing, and grim design. Heck, even the dang theme song is unnerving, acting almost creepier than some of the episodes we got. Even the world under daylight is unsafe from the Darkside's reach. Being an anthology show, you can guess that like our beloved Haunting Hour and Goosebumps and etc., each and every story was unique and different in its own way. So the show as a whole is hard to judge in a series review, as the quality depends on its assortment of fantastic arcs, and the small bad eggs hidden among the good eggs. I have so many fond memories of this show that I want to show you all how amazing this show is. So, let's begin with the pilot episode, which kicked off this art piece, which is naturally a Halloween special.
I knew it!
Yep, like many iconic horror stories, this was one which opened up on the best holiday of the year, meaning that it's daring you to see how scary it is, since it won't be holding back on this occasion. I've waited years for this moment. Time to see if it was worth it. Pilot episodes are usually rocky starts for a new series, but this one was so confident that it got Romero himself to write it, which he would not do often for TV shows. So, was this episode a tasty treat, giving us a delicious first bite of a phenomenal series, or a cruel trick that's rotted the show's rep like an old jack-o'-lantern? Time we enter this haunted mansion to see. This is our wacky review of the very first episode of Tales from the Darkside. Trick or Treat. So, our episode opens up in a dimly lit office of a general store, where some old guys discuss some accounting.
Yippee!
We soon meet our main protagonist, Mr. Gideon Hackles, a greedy old Scrooge of a businessman who's incredibly stingy with cash and only worships the almighty dollar. He's so obsessed with money that he even framed his very first penny he earned back in the Great Depression as a reminder of his perfect work ethic, of how money is everything.
Most people spend mere pennies all too willingly. I, on the other hand, collect them.
You don't ever want to spoil that trophy, or he'd mount your butts on his wall.
And then did you draw on it with crayon? Oh, I thought, maybe he'd buy it.
Mr. Hackles is doing his finances with his accountants, one of them played by Willie Tanner from ALF. I'm sure he knows how valuable money is when living with that manic muppet. This opening quickly establishes Mr. Hackles' nasty personality and how greedy he is. He operates in a very small rural town and is the sole general store in the area, yet he takes full advantage of his less wealthy townsfolk. He's so untrustworthy towards everyone too, even having no friends due to his shallow vices. Why, even random strangers are kept distanced from him.
Would it be possible for me to have another cup of coffee?
You want another cup of coffee? I shall have to charge you 4 cents.
4 cents.
My cost plus a 20% profit. I never overcharge. I never cheat. But I expect to collect every penny that's due me.
Since he's the only general store in a city without a Walmart, everyone in town owes him money, making him extremely profitable. The old dude is essentially a hybrid of Ebenezer Scrooge and Mr. Krabs, being a mean-spirited, cold businessman who the entire town dislikes, and having a deranged obsession with making a quick buck.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-chingery. Money, oh money, how I love thee.
However, there is one thing he does love more than money.
No! No!
It's coming closer! It's Halloween, gentlemen. Halloween! Have you forgotten? My favorite season.
We instantly see how unpleasant Mr. Hackles is in his day-to-day business, revealing that he exploits the townsfolk with outrageous prices on products they need, is the key industry in their small farm town, documents every small amount of cash owed to him, and even has a collection of IOUs to hold the debt over his customers.
Everyone in this town must owe him money.
Almost everyone, Mr. B. Almost everyone.
Apparently, Mr. Hackles learned the value of the dollar from his youth in the Great Depression, and to him, it's the sole necessity that matters. However, the show highlights how his greed also stripped away most of his humanity, as he has no issue mocking those less fortunate than him, and ensuring that his clients know they'll always owe him debt, even threatening to take away their property as payment, like he does with an innocent farm family.
You've built up a considerable debt in a very short time. But your credit is good with me, just so long as I have your farm as collateral.
Asshole!
As he banters with some clients, he does reveal why Halloween is his favorite season. You see, every Hallows Eve, he holds a special contest for all the neighborhood children. No, don't worry, he doesn't get inappropriate with them.
Oh, rats!
Every year, he hosts a scary house party, which he constructs for all the children to play in. The kids who enter his haunted house can find a special prize, worth a lot to the whole family. They must enter his haunted house to find his collection of the town's IOUs, hidden somewhere in his scare maze. And if they find them, then the debts of their parents are 100% cleared. The champ can free anyone from financial ruin.
And if you find them, all of your father's debts are forgiven, forgotten, cancelled forever.
But Mr. Hackles is obviously not doing this out of the goodness of his heart. Shocking, I know. He basically hosts this game so he can troll the kids and scare the piss out of them for fun, as his house is this elaborate jigsaw maze full of state-of-the-art horror tech that's so scary no kid has ever found the prize.
Game over.
The show wastes no time making sure you hate Mr. Hackles and his sadistic behavior, since it's not bad enough he scams the adults, but he also gets his jollies out of traumatizing kids too, which he sees as a harsh lesson in toughening them up, when really he just enjoys bullying them.
I'm an old bastard!
He's done this so often that a local farmer sees right through his false promise and refuses to let his boy enter.
Oh, go ahead. Take the farm if that'll make you happy. I'd rather that than let my boy visit you tonight. I'm just surprised the others let their children do it.
Most parents make their children do it.
The sad thing is, he's right. There's a lot of desperate folks out there who submit to his little game. Why, even Vincent D'Onofrio dares challenge him by warning that his kid will win.
I've toughened him up enough to beat you at your game. Yes, sir. Tomorrow morning, the Muldoons is going to be out of debt for the first time in their entire history.
Sign, please.
Mr. Hackles is such a devious bastard that you can't help but love to hate him, almost in an old-fashioned Tales from the Crypt way. The guy playing him does such an over-the-top and weaselly method of giving him life that it really makes him enjoyable to follow, as he unwittingly marches towards his karma, rather than him feeling too annoying or despicable to sit through. You cannot wait to see his dethroning.
And remember, there's nothing as powerful as money.
Hackles is such a jerk that apparently he redesigns his entire mansion every year into his infamous jigsaw maze. And yes, he goes all out on this joint since he creates the most boss-haunted house level you'd ever see, especially for an old 80s show.
Nevermore.
He hides the prize in a secret spot, sets traps everywhere, totally embraces Halloween decor like a party city, programs animatronics, adds surround sound, and even has a Riddler control room to watch everything.
You may as well just turn back now.
You know, for a guy who's stingy with cash, he sure does have the most expensive haunted funhouse in the world.
This is all stuff I wanted to do when I was an Imagineer at Disney, but was told my ideas weren't family friendly.
I'll skin you alive, you little whore!
Oddly, despite the old crone being a saint prick, there's some small scenes where you almost feel some sympathy for him.
Trick or treat, Mr. Hackles. Trick or treat.
Trick or treat, huh? I've never been treated to anything in my life.
As weird as it is, I do like how there's some minor scenes that humanize Mr. Hackles a bit more, implying that this guy was a person at one point before transforming into the Mr. Burns clone he is now. It grants Gideon a lot more character outside of his cartoonishly evil Scrooge act, so you are kind of fooled into believing that this guy could have been redeemed like old Ebenezer was, or fall like all bad guys do. Despite showing his Dickens, we do see that Hackles does have a point about the parents being just as bad as he is. Remember earlier?
Most parents make their children do it.
Well, some of the parents do force their kids to play his little game.
Come in.
It's okay, Bessie. It's okay. Go on in.
Dad?
Go on, Tim. Go in there and find our papers. Make sure you come out with them.
I'm so good at daddying.
It's ultimately a grim reminder of Hackles' harsh philosophy that some people will do anything for money. It's always heavy when the villain makes a valid argument. However, the episode doesn't forget that Hackles is still the greater evil here, as he springs into action. And a huge portion of this episode is just the old coot scaring the lemonade out of children, while he laughs his ass off.
I love being a jerk!
We cut back to the poor farmer's house, where the boy isn't gonna puss out of these horror games, cause his pa needs to save their home, and he heads off to save the day. We quickly get back to Hackles' hell, where he lays waste to children's bowels, and terrifies dozens of brats.
I'm an old bastard!
He really does a dang good job at horror for such a prick. Some of this stuff honestly still looks grisly by today. I'd run away if I saw this junk.
I'll fucking kill you!
And yes, he somehow controls everything going on in this 3-story house from his Riddler control room. The entire mansion is under his strings. He learned from the best.
Stay out of here. Hey, nobody better come in here. I'm the Griffin's house. Bring me a tool shed, for I am hungry.
The haunted house is simply a fun yet unsettling arena, as the episode makes great use out of the craziness of this whole situation, and seriously makes sure it's a pad that'll scare little kids who are alone in this death trap. We even see Vincent D'Onofrio's boy, who had years of Jedi training, cower in fear.
Did you get the papers, son? Do you have them?
There's no such thing as demons.
For a second there, I mistook you for threats. But you're just turning into children.
While Mr. Hackles is offering a chance for the kids to aid their parents, it's made more and more blatant that he's not a decent guy, as he's getting a twisted thrill out of making the kiddies cry, and scarring them for life. And if that doesn't convince you he sucks, well, he also cheats.
I don't cheat. I don't have to. People make their own misfortunes.
Now, he doesn't outright lie, but he does misdirect kids away from the loot crate and into traps, basically indirectly cheating through use of trickery. When one of the kids gets too close to sweet victory, Hackles blatantly deceives him and rigs his own game to ensure only he wins every time.
No problem, man. I'm an asshole.
After scaring half the younglings in town, he has a rather unique reaction to his last losers.
Backwards. People in this valley have it all backwards.
I like how they nearly make you think, oh, is he showing some regret for his actions? Only for him to snap back to King Dusha mode, as if teasing he had the chance to show some compassion, but refused, pretty much sealing his fate, because now things go to the dark side. That jump scare always creeped me out, since the bear never comes alive or does anything, but it makes you question if that was Hackles' playhouse effects or something magical. This episode starts to lean towards spooky when Hackles' house gets hacked by real spirits who are disgusted by the old-timer's black heart, and the play gets a sinister encore. I love this dark turn because not only is it where the show flexes its talented terror, but it's where this episode became a fan favorite thanks to its climax. Hackles assumes it's a glitch or something, but then he gets a new gamer.
Trick or treat.
Whoopi Goldberg? Hackles believes he's being tricked and tells her to buzz off, but the scariest witch you'll ever see reveals that she's not a costume. She's a real witch and flies into his house to force him to play a new game. The makeup on the witch is magnificent, since she looks so lifelike and grossly non-human. You really don't see a person in a cheap suit. She looks like an unholy ghoul, and her cackle is haunting. The episode doesn't spell it out entirely, but the witch is strongly implied to be the spirit of Halloween, and she's come for Gideon, since he's ruined the holiday cheer for this town's children for the last time. So, she seeks to punish his insolence. You see, kids want fun scary, not mean scary, and Hackles is mean enough to piss off real monsters. The witch, Sabrina, I guess, summons all his haunted house decor to life, and dares him to save his shredded IOUs and money if he can, traumatizing him with her own crew. She breathes life into the decor, the pumpkins, the puppets, the costumes. Everything Halloween in his home is real.
Oh, this isn't fair. I wasn't wearing a costume.
I must admit, for a cheap horror anthology show, these are some awesome practical effects. It looks so amazing and kind of unsettling how the episode makes the horror decor look alive. It's just so creepy how they don't quite look fully human and move in awkward jerky motions. A tad cheesy, but totally Halloween. Mr. Hackles fails the game of death, and in a vain effort to save his moolah, he takes a wrong turn. And this part of the episode still terrifies me to this very day.
getting warmer. You're getting warmer. Warmer, getting warmer. Much warmer. You're getting hot.
Yep, Mr. Hackles is dumped in hell as penalty for his greed. And holy cow, is this one scene the most disturbing part of the whole episode. I especially like the devil, who ironically mocks Gideon with his previous taunt, since this is the most fright-sgusting Satan I've ever seen. And I've seen Peter Stormare in a gangsta suit. This is not going to be the only time we see hell in this series, but by Jove, this is paws down one of the most striking designs of it. The practical effect of Satan and his burning souls are so gnarly, slinking around in their agony, and you won't ever forget this nightmarish hellhole thanks to the show's hard work. Hackles is dragged off down to the abyss forever, learning a harsh lesson himself in not being a ghoul as the episode closes his business book.
The Nightmare Room.
But it's not over yet!
The farm boy finally arrives at Mr. Hackles' challenge, only to be greeted by Sabrina the Freakish Witch, who flies off into the night, but rewards the kid all of Hackles' treasures as a nice holiday treat. This sort of serves as a nice lesson on how kids who act brave usually get the best treats, which is nice. So the farm boy wins and saves his poor fam, as we see Hackles' headstone, his soul now repaying his wicked debt.
We'll tear your soul apart.
And that was the end of the first ever tale from the Darkside, Trick or Treat. How does it hold up? Well, let's just say there's a reason why this plot usually makes it on top 10 best episodes lists. Trick or Treat to this day remains one of the grandest adventures of the show, as it feels like a timeless classic. The episode is an old-school monster story, mixed with the cautionary tale schematic these horror shows usually delve into. I admire how the entire project just embraces Halloween's Halloweenness, feeling more Halloween than some of the actual Halloween movies. Halloween! This episode does fine establishing what this series as a whole will feel like. The baddie gets his just desserts, the nice boy gets rewarded for caring for others, and scary shenanigans ensue all around, up until delivering us a lesson on not being a dick. It's all stuff we've seen in many horror anthologies before, but the Darkside truly does make their spin feel like their own. This episode is just as fun as the first time I ever saw it, as Tales from the Darkside doesn't hold back on all the 31 flavors of horror they sell you on, not even avoiding death on the franchise. Something that places this show high for me is that death is completely acknowledged and totally supernaturally creative, which even the 80s Twilight Zone didn't always touch upon. This episode might not be the deepest of the Darkside, but it feels like a children's ghost story brought to life, outclassing even Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark, since the 80s horror isn't too worried about crossing those lines. Personally, I love this episode quite a lot, thanks to the horrific atmosphere, the Halloween festivity, the gnarly creatures, the good acting, the funhouse setting, and the sleek storytelling, as it all makes a rather conventional horror tale an enchanting nightmare. Mr. Hackles was a unique idiot bully character for once, as his actor is clearly giving it his all, and the writing for him does a wondrous job building up towards his eventual downfall. It's a pretty standard don't be greedy or a dick message, but made more powerful thanks to the spirit of Halloween literally swooping in and toying with Hackles the way he did with so many innocent kids. A harsh but excellent poetic justice, showing how the dark side is always there, even within us, as it waits to consume us. A lesson which Mr. Hackles should have learned, but he chose to trick rather than treat. So the darkness came to collect what he owed. So I'll repay this episode with a gold skull and a perfect score. I cannot highly recommend this episode, heck, this entire show enough, because it is phenomenal. The first episode is just as strong as Really You, Scareful What You Wish For, and even The Man Who Was Deaf. The saga definitely puts its strongest foot forward and enters the realm of horror so well that you kind of want to see where it goes. I'm sure a ton of fans will argue that there's other superior episodes over this one, and I agree, since this show does house a metric ton, but you can't deny that this is a good hook to lure in newbies. Trick or Treat is a divine tribute to the dark side of Hallows Eve. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, or just tune in for more videos here on Wolf Entertainment. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and this was just the first stop.
The dark side is always there, waiting for us to enter, waiting to enter us. Until next time, try to enjoy the daylight.
Diamond Hole Bastard!